Good evening, radio listeners, people of St. Maarten. Welcome to Another View. Another View is a program designed to bring you information and clarity on the issues affecting our country and our people. You have heard the position of your government, you have heard the position of Parliament. Now get another view on the things that are happening in this country today. I would like to welcome my friend, the leader of the One St. Maarten People's Party, Mr. Lenny. Mr. Lenny, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, radio listeners. Good evening, Elton. Thank you. And I believe we should have a very informative program because, as we've said, it's about presenting another view to the people on issues that are basically affecting their daily lives.
Okay, without any further ado, we'd like to get right into the program. I would like to start with the situation of unemployment. On the last CBS poll, the Statistical Bureau has said that the overall unemployment in St. Maarten is about 12.6% overall, and it's 27% and more among the young people of this country. Tell me how you feel about unemployment and the fact that our young people are not getting gainful employment. And secondly, how would you offer a solution to this immense problem?
Well, Elton, I think when you look at basically unemployment among young people and when you walk or drive through the district, you see so many young people that are basically unemployed. Many of them want to work. It is very unfortunate that people that are living here, particularly young people between the ages of 18 to 30 that wants to work but can't find employment. There are a lot of programs. I can recall that the former Minister of Education, Dr. Rhoda Arundel, had started a program called the GB3, Get Off the Block, Get on the Bus, Get Busy. And right after that, you had the government change, and of course you had the then NA government that came in, and because it was not a program that was initiated by them, they just push it under the wastebasket. And I think that is very unfortunate because I think today, 2-3 years later, had that program gone into effect fully, and with changes, today we would have had less young people basically unemployed. The Prime Minister recently talked about a program, unemployment fund program, where he's talking about coming up with this funding that would basically pay people to work for a company. So in other words, the company would not have to pay them. Those employees would basically be trained, and hopefully after a year that maybe the company would basically keep those people working. And while I believe that every effort must be applauded in order to put our young people to work, I believe that there are other methods that we can basically do it. In 1989, there was a program, a law that was passed in the former Netherlands Antilles called the Lei de Beyond. And this law basically indicated that people between the age of 18 to 30 unemployed, that they, if a business employ one of those individuals, that they would have been exempt from paying payroll taxes. We took that same law and we basically sent it to every member of parliament as well as the council of ministers, and with some revision where we said instead of the businesses being exempt from paying payroll taxes, that they would get a tax credit at the end of the year. And again, a good idea. It wasn't a law that we basically created. It was a law that was created in the parliament, the former parliament of the Netherlands Antilles. But again, not one of the members of parliament at that time basically saw it fitting in order to use that law. So today now when you come with, you're going to pay people people that are working for a company, I believe that you're putting the cart in front of the horse, because that same money that you would use in order to pay the employees, that you can basically put that in what we refer to as a loan guarantee program, that to help young people that want to start a business, that they would get the type of funding from a bank that to create employment, real jobs. But when you look at this unemployment fund, I believe that it is taking money, and it's basically, in my opinion, I believe it is waste, because while yes, you want to see as many of your young people working, but I believe that if government takes the same, or parliament, the same lady beyond, and make some adjustment to it, that it can fit the needs of St. Martin, and the money that you would raise by whether it is increasing the gasoline tax on gasoline, that money now can go into a loan guarantee program that will be able to create real jobs.
Um, One of the things, if you could well remember, in the government of empowerment, we had used such a creative system to raise funds for sport and culture. And I'm of the opinion that now that the Prime Minister has come up with this idea to use the same thing to fund employment, whereas the employer will have absolutely no stake in it, is really taking away funds from another project that could better serve the country. Besides that, I know that there has been an ongoing argument about the counterpart system and how it would affect the unemployment on the island. And secondly, a former colleague of ours has always proposed to use a quota system to guarantee work for our people who are not working, because as we see, the only people in St. Martin that don't get a job are the local people. How do you see, first of all, the counterpart system, and secondly, the quota system?
Well, I have always said, as it pertains to the counterpart policy, and again, I want to say that every effort that is made in order to put our people to work, you have to applaud it. But when you look at the counterpart policy, and I've said it on numerous occasions, and even written to government, where we've indicated, look, permits are basically issued by the government. Government decides who is going to work legally on the island. So therefore, why would you need to put somebody to work with somebody that you issued a permit to? I am saying that if a person, you want to put your people to work, the fact is that you don't need to have no counterpart. And besides, with a counterpart, who is going to pay that second person? In government, it could be a little different, because if you have technical assistants that are basically working, you put a counterpart in order to acquire the knowledge. But in the private sector, if you have a counterpart, it would mean that you would be paying two persons basically to do the same job. So you're making the cost of doing business more expensive. And at the end of the day, what is going to happen? That business is going to go out of business, because you can't afford to pay, let's say, two additional persons. So in other words, pay four person to do the job that two persons supposed to do. So the counterpart, definitely, in my opinion, it is not something that could benefit the people of St. Martin. I think that what we need to look at, and this is something that we have granted so many scholarships to many young people that have gone abroad. Today, when someone applies for work permit, you would expect that with modern technology today, that between the Labor Department and the Department of Study Financing, that they have some type of database. So in other words, if someone requests a work permit, the first thing you would expect, that if the database at the Labor Department, that they cannot find someone within that database, the next thing they should do is check with the Department of Education and see if we have students who are graduating, or where they're at. Maybe they're living in Holland, they live in the United States, but would welcome the opportunity to come back to St. Martin to work. But in many cases, yes, they would say, well, yeah, we have put an ad, but nobody basically apply. That may be true, but the fact is, if you know where they're at, sometimes you have to go directly to those individuals and say, basically, look, there's a vacancy in St. Martin, and we would like you to consider coming back home to St. Martin in order to work. I can remember when we were doing the harbor project in 1998, that we needed to appoint a managing director for the new legal structure that was being put in place. And that's when we went and we approached this gentleman, Fernando William, in order to bring him in as managing director of the Harbor Group of Companies. So many times as a government, that yes, you put an ad, but if that is not successful by people applying, but you know that you have people whether in the United States, in Europe, or wherever, that you must then approach those people in order to be able to bring them back home to work.
Okay, one of the things that we have been hearing and have noted carefully, that government says nothing or doesn't respond to certain ads. I've seen ads with quite some frequency now requiring that you speak a Scandinavian language or you speak Hebrew to get certain jobs in St. Martin. First of all, these are languages that are totally foreign to us. They're not taught in our schools. And I personally see it as a way of saying to the locals, there's no need for you to apply. And the other thing is, I think government issues study financing. They know where these kids are. And it's still when we go to recruit people to work here, we go to Holland and elsewhere to job fairs, and then we say we can't find our own people. I mean, this is not the 19th century anymore. I mean, we are a wired society. It should be easy to find our people, and I think government should give contracts to the expatriate with the clear knowledge that when my people return, they should get the jobs. How do you feel about that?
No, I agree with you. I think that in many cases that when you look at a Aruba, when a work permit is granted, it says upon the availability of our people. So in other words, once an Arubian becomes available, then you know that that work permit is no longer going to be extended. But I think that we have to be a little bit more aggressive as it pertains to our people because, you know, when you look at it realistically, we send students away on a yearly basis, and we have a big fanfare at the airport with steel band and pizza and different things for our young people, and then we hear nothing from them. And the only time that you hear about a young person who has graduated, whether it's in law and some field, if their parents decides to put an ad in the paper to say that my son, my daughter has graduated with a master's degree in law or a master's degree in business administration. But I believe that these are the type of things that government should be responsible for. That you know that these students are graduated, you know, basically because they have to submit the information to you as a government. So you should be able to let the general public know that our people have graduated, or X amount of people have graduated. This is the field that they've basically graduated in. And to come back to the point that you mentioned in terms of those different languages, I think, yes, you're right. They do it basically in order not to employ our people. And then still work permits are granted to those individuals, even though those things are stated in the ads. So again, we need to be a little bit more on top of things and be able to put our people to work, because if we don't put our people to work, then what is the importance of having a strong economy? For who are we basically building this economy?
One of the things, like you mentioned, it seems that we are very happy to see our children go, but there's no possibility or any welcoming committee when they come back. We know, and it's still ongoing, that government offer lucrative contracts and lucrative opportunities to expatriates coming to work here. They get housing, they get cars, some of them even get a paid vacation. And when a local returns with the same qualification, he or she is informed to live with your parents. How do you see that as a turn off for people returning to the country after putting in 5 to 10 years in studies abroad?
Well, you know, of course, I believe that when we take our people, we have to do everything to welcome our people to come back to St. Maarten. But I think it should not only be to tell them to come back, but we have to go out of our way in order to recruit them to come back to St. Maarten and be able to provide them with certain incentives when they're coming back to St. Maarten. If we think, one of the things that we've always said, that if you look at housing, for example, that 40% of one salary basically goes into rent, or it goes into a mortgage. Just recently, as you know, that there was a decision made by the outgoing government where they basically transfer divorce estate to the APS, so the pension fund, for 1 guilder. They're talking about building low-income houses. The question is, as is basically for whom? But these are the type of things that you would definitely have to put in place for your people to make sure that there's proper housing for them, so that when they come back, or at least look forward to coming back to St. Maarten. Another thing too that I think is very important, that many of our young people, of course, when they graduate, that many of them are eager to come back to St. Maarten. But I believe from one government to the other that we can establish a relationship with the different municipalities in the Netherlands so that they can acquire the necessary experience. So whether it's a year or 2 years, in particular those who are going into the public sector, you know, that into government, that you can basically, from government, you can arrange for those students to get that experience so that when they come back to St. Maarten, not only do they have a degree, but they also have at least 1 or 2 years of experience so that they can get up and make their contribution to the further development of St. Martin.
Just on that verse, divorce and property thing, it's amazing. I mean, it's mind-boggling to understand that we can spend so much money on a piece of property. I mean, there were umpteen meetings in Parliament on this piece of property and how it would send the cost of real estate up in this country, and now we have basically given it away, and with the intention, so they say, that I've read in the press, to build homes for our returning professionals. But the returning professionals, when they're here, and we have spoken to some young people in this country who have 2 and 3 years back on this island, cannot get a job, and when they do get a dig-in by government sends them to a agent bureau, so a job placement center, and gives them 3 and 4 month contract. How would you address that point?
Well, I think that one of the things we need to look at first, if we look at that arrangement that was made with the Vorse estate, and I think it's mind-boggling to know that you have the governments. In this case, now you have the NA, the US, and the DP with the independence of the eight members now, and when they were in opposition, and the NA as well as the DP, they were posing a lot of questions, requesting a lot of information. The fact is that you're in government now, you have access to that information. When are you going to bring that information out to the people? Because people would like to know, how is it possible that an estate like Vorse Estate, that you paid close to 9 million guilders, that the price per square meter was about $495, something must have gone wrong. It is, I mean, there were talks that there were appraisal reports that indicated a price much lower, and that the government at that time decided to throw those appraisal report in the garbage, and to basically to buy the property of $495 a square meter. So that alone in itself tells you that something is wrong. Yes, government that is there now has to continue to work and do things in the interest of the people, but at the same token, things that were done wrong, divorce estate is definitely one of them. And second, when we look at the security contract with Checkmate, that had a tremendous increase, and yet the same members who are in government today, when they were in opposition, some even threatened to take the UP-led government to court. And today, now that you're in government, that you are not bringing that information out. We have submitted a letter to the government, to the Prime Minister, Mr. Maarten, requesting that information. Okay, but yet today, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you hear absolutely nothing about that information. One thing I can say, that if it was just the reverse, that if it was the UP-led government that was coming in, that information, one way or the other, would have gotten out to the public. And I believe that this government must make that information available to the people, because 9 million guilders, $495 a square meter, something definitely is fishy where that agreement, that arrangement is concerned.
I have a real problem with the way certain things are done in government. It would seem that depending on what side of the aisle you're on at a given moment, an issue is a priority, and if you form the government later, it's not a priority. One specific issue that comes to questions is a short-term contract. There was a draft law. One of the High Council said it should have been in Dutch and all the backwards and forth. But apparently it has fallen off the table. All of a sudden, you're not hearing anything about the short-term contracts anymore, and people are not suffering any less.
Exactly, because I think that it's basically the abuse of the short-term contract, because you know that there are a lot of companies that basically give, and mostly our people, that gave them these contracts 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, and after the third contract, they let them go home for 2 or 3 months. And when you go back, you see somebody else basically doing the same job that you were doing before, and it is happening to our people. And this is that's why I said before in the beginning, that if we are going to invest millions of guilders in promoting this island so that we can have a strong economy, the question is, a strong economy for who? Because if our people cannot, because when you look at it this way, that a person who is basically on contract cannot get a loan, they can't get a loan, so that person is never able to buy a piece of land and to build a house. So they have to continue to rent for the rest of their life because they can't get a permanent job. And I'm saying, how is that possible today in the St. Maarten of today? That we are basically taking care of everybody else, but our people are basically left on the side. Those who go abroad to study can't find employment. Many of them come back to St. Maarten and there's no job. They can't find employment. And you've seen other people basically working. It is unheard of and it is unacceptable. And something can be done and something must be done.
Well, government itself hired Transparency International to write a report on some of the ills affecting this country. And one of them in the report clearly states that it's practically impossible to build a country, so nation building, when all of your departments are headed by non-nationals. So it's not anything that government doesn't know. I think government is turning a blind eye to the fact that its people are suffering and living up to the moment. As long as the 11 brothers in parliament are able to cover for each other, I think the people are not figuring in that. But I'd like to go to another point now. Public health. We know that in the last few years we have paid 29 million guilders or more for medical referrals to different countries, Santo Domingo, Colombia, Curacao, and even the French territories. We have seen in the printed press a proposal from one Austrian company to invest 100 million in the medical center, 30 million of which will go towards medical tourism. There has been no tenders, no pre-planning, and so how do you see this, and what do you see as the future for St. Maarten Medical Center?
Well, again, when you look at the incoming government, the NA-led government, that information that because there were talks that the UP-led government that they were about to start the construction of this new medical center. Today you have the NA led government in there. There's information basically available, and yet they're not bringing that information out to let the people know exactly what is basically taking place. I think that when we look at the amount of money that we are spending to send referrals to Colombia, to Santo Domingo and elsewhere, that if we invest in a medical center, upgrade our medical center or build a new medical center, I believe that it would be beneficial to St. Maarten in many ways. First of all, you would have that most of our people would be able to be attended here in St. Maarten. The monies that you will be sending abroad, those funding would stay right here in St. Maarten. The recovery of our patient would be better because it would mean that family members and friends would be able to visit the patients on a regular basis. But when you have to go to Santo Domingo or to Colombia, you get maybe one person, a family member that goes with you, but the others can't come and visit you because of the distance, the cost, and everything else. There's been so much discussion about this medical center. When we look at the last election in 2014, I can recall that the UP government, the UP party, that was one of the biggest things, that we're going to get a new hospital. They were in government for almost a year and absolutely nothing basically happened. But it must take place. I believe it is important that we have a new medical center, that we have a new hospital, and as far as it pertains to medical tourism, I believe that is one way to go to, because it would generate income for St. Maarten, and we would have specialists here in St. Maarten that would definitely benefit the people of St. Maarten. But before we even go that far, I believe that both at this moment, the medical center and that of the French side, that there must be some type of cooperation, because there are a lot of services that can be had right there on the French side. I was speaking to a gentleman that had a situation where he needed to have a ultrasound done, and when he applied at the medical center through his doctor, the referral from his doctor, that it was going to take him 1 month in order to have that ultrasound done. We went to a doctor on the French side, paid $30–50 for a visit, and got a referral to do an ultrasound. The Monday and the Wednesday, basically, he was able to do the ultrasound on the French side. So it tells you that there's something definitely wrong where the health is concerned, and we need to basically address that, because a country that has a poor health plan, crime is basically on the rise, and when you have unemployment, I think you're definitely creating an atomic bomb.
Okay. The other thing that we would like to get information on, I think the people are very interested. There was a lot of meetings and talks about buying the Emilio Wilson Park for the people because it's one of those historic properties we have, and we didn't want to lose it. What we have done, we have purchased it, but we have given a large part of it to one of the cruise companies to build a park with zip lines and other attractions. And we have learned, and we definitely would like to know if it's true that this particular cruise line is now tendering in Totola, British Virgin Islands. So this is information we'd like to get, and we'd like to know what is the final destination of the Amelia Wilson Park.
Yes, I believe that there were two young gentlemen, and I can mention the name, Jocelyn Richardson and Denisio Wyatt, in my opinion, have submitted a beautiful proposal in terms of how that property can be used. And that proposal was submitted to members of parliament as well as to the government at that time. And it's very unfortunate that at no point did the government look at that proposal. And again, that if it was something that others had done, most likely they would have used it. But because it was done by two young locals or two local St. Martiners, the government has not utilized their proposal. And I believe that that is one way again, because when we go to, again, if we talk about the Emilio Wilson Park, because one of the area that they had designated in that proposal was for agriculture. And we know for a fact that we have a lot of young people that don't want to work in an office. They don't want to go pack shelves. They don't want to work in a casino, but would have no problem going to work the ground in order to grow and for the people here in St. Martin for own personal consumption. So I think that it is something we definitely have to consider when it comes to the Emilio Wilson Park. I think the part as it pertains to the contract or the agreement that they signed with that cruise liner, I think that the government that is sitting there has to look into it and get back to the people and let the people know exactly what is going to take place. But more than anything else, I would definitely request and call on the government to look at that proposal that was submitted by these two young St. Martiners, that a portion of the land will be used for agriculture and therefore being able to create jobs for our people.
Okay, and also speaking about the agriculture part, we know that the post in the budget also entails fisheries and animal husbandry. We know that since 10-10-10, we have designated a lot of national parks around the coastline and in the regional waters. We know that large parts of this society that have subsisted through the years from fishing today can't fish because there's hardly any place you can fish in Dutch St. Martin. We buy most of our fish is imported from St. Bart's, Anguilla, Sebastian, and the the people that made a livelihood from this today are not able to do so. How do you see that, and what do you think is a solution in dealing with that?
Well, again, I believe that there are a lot of people that want to continue in that industry, the fishery and everything else, but opportunities must be given to them. I think we have to revisit, and as one person have said recently, that at the time when the division was basically taking place, or the separation of the water rights, that it seems as if the person that was in charge, that was representing St. Martin, fell asleep on the wheels, because at that particular time you had the Dutch that basically were able to gobble up a greater portion of the water rights in this vicinity where St. Martin is concerned. So it's something that we would have to look at and see basically when how that can be addressed, because those people that want to continue in that industry and to be able to provide for their family and be able to provide fish for St. Martin, they must be given the opportunity to continue in that particular industry.
Okay, Mr. Priest, we have reached to the end of the program. Before closing, are there any words that you would like to leave with the listeners and the voters of St. Martin?
Well, yeah. First of all, I believe that this being the first program of the OSPP, Another View, that, of course, it is something that we will continue to provide you with information. And we want to, of course, ask you also as listeners that there would be issues that you would want us to address, or information that you have on certain issues, that you can also provide that to us. And again, to the general public of St. Maarten, I would want to also invite you to a debate, that panel discussion that is taking place on Saturday. Is being organized by the JCI Live, so that you can attend that at the university this coming Saturday from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, where the various political parties would be able to give you their views as it pertains to poverty on St. Maarten.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peace. Our listeners, you've had it. Another View, a program designed to bring you information and clarity on the issues affecting this country and our people. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope to